Hi guys, and today I've got for you a review of the Audi A3 Sportback 40 TFSI E. Let me translate that for you. This is the Audi A3 hatchback with a plug-in electric hybrid drive system producing about 204 brake horsepower. You can see where the plug goes in over there. Now, as you can see, it's snowing, so I'm going to tell you more about the car once I get inside. It's just too damn cold out here. But before I do that, I'm going to remind you to subscribe to youtube.com/browncarguy. Of course, my website, which is browncarguy.com. And of course, look for me on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for my hashtag. It's hashtag browncarguy. Of course, you can also sponsor my videos very easily, and you can do that by going to patreon.com/browncarguy. Right, let's get into this. No, I mean really, let's get inside this. You know, I've got to say, I think this is the best looking Audi A3 that I've ever seen. I think the styling is really good on this car. Not just because of that quite aggressive and sporty front. It's almost verging on a little bit fussy with all the lines and cuts and the angular bits on it. But it works for me, I like it. But I particularly like the side profile. I like the extended wheel arches, the bulging wheel arches on this thing. Bulging wheel arches are such an 80s thing. So for me, it's a lot of nostalgia there. And I do like cars that make that sort of statement about the muscle, the way they stretch the muscle over the wheel arches. So for that reason, I think this is a really good looking car. And it also works with when the light bounces off it at night and stuff like that. It looks really, really good. So this is the hybrid car, and it's related closely to the Volkswagen Golf plug-in hybrid. And like that car, it gets a 1.4 cylinder petrol engine, putting out 150 brake horsepower. Now there's an 85 kilowatt electric motor that is actually integrated into the 6-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, the DCT, and that puts out 107 brake horsepower. Now to combine them, there's some weird way of doing the maths. You don't just add them together, but when you do combine them, what you end up with is 204 brake horsepower and 258 pounds-foot of torque. That gives it a 0 to 62 miles per hour acceleration time quoted at 7.6 seconds, but it gets two quoted top speed. There's a top speed for the electric only mode, which is 87 miles per hour, and then there's a top speed for the combined thing, which is 141 miles per hour, apparently limited. Miles per gallon on this car is quoted as 280 miles per gallon. Alright, that I guess is theoretically using the EV most of the time. I have to say that's a load of nonsense. I think in the real world, you know, that would never ever happen. And in fact, I took it for a couple of long runs myself, and I got about 42 miles per gallon. I reckon the maximum you could hope to get out of this car is probably 45 miles per gallon real world. Although I will give you the proviso that this is an extremely cold weather that we're having at the moment. And also, I'll come back to how the hybrid system actually works on the go and what benefits they are of actually using the plug-in hybrid. Now, the other great thing, of course, about electric and hybrid cars are the low emissions. And sure enough, this is quoted as 25 grams per kilometer CO2, which is good, but that's not for this exact car, because this car is the S-Line, nicely trimmed S-Line version, and it gets the bigger 18-inch alloy wheels instead of the 17-inch wheels. Now you're thinking that's no big difference, surely. You're wrong. It makes quite a big difference because the CO2 suddenly increases from 25 to 29 grams per kilometer. And if you think, so what? Well, it has an impact on tax, apparently, particularly for business users. So you need to check out how much extra that's going to cost you. Apparently, it could cost you quite a bit. So because of that, they have given you the facility of downgrading back to the 17-inch alloy wheels as a no-cost option. And actually, I think that's probably a better bet. And on the go, I'll reveal why. And another reason to do that is because the driving range, the EV, the electric driving range, is also reduced by having the bigger wheels by a few miles, by maybe 3 or 4 miles, something like that. Otherwise, they claim it to be 40 miles. Now, once again, in the real world, I don't think so, particularly in this cold weather. I would dispute that. I reckon it's way less than half that, really, just on EV alone. Now, this car does get a bigger battery than the previous Audi A3, I think they called it the e-tron, but the previous plug-in electric hybrid. This is a better system. This one gets a 13 kilowatt lithium-ion battery. That's in the boot. The boot space is compromised. It goes down from 380 litres in a regular A3 hatchback to 280 litres in this car. Now, these start from £33,000, but as with German cars, as always the case, that's never what you actually end up paying for them, because you always want to spec them up. So, for example, this particular car is £35,000 on the road, including the delivery, just under £35,000 actually, I should say. But if you want the spectacular blue that's on this car, and I would want it because I do like it, it looks really good, that alone is £575 just for that. You do also want the digital matrix headlights on this car, and they're £675. There's also apparently a storage and luggage pack on this car. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but that's £175. Could just be this, I'm not sure. And an ambient lighting pack at £110. Take it or leave those, I don't know. But what you might really want, particularly in this cold weather, are the fantastic heated seats that are on this car. But they are £330, and that takes the total on this particular test car to £37,000. That's quite a bit for a compact hatchback, but it is an Audi and it is an executive car. So let's get back to our normal routine test. We'll check out the boot, the rear passenger cabin, and then we'll return back to the front of the car. So let's check out the boot space. As already mentioned, it has been compromised because of the existence of the batteries underneath. I can show you that. First of all, check out that huge case. That's just for the charging cables, which you shouldn't always need to carry with you. So underneath here, I can just put that up, hook that up from there. You can see that big bump. That's pretty much where the batteries live. So that's what takes up all of the space. Having said that, you get a pocket over here, first aid kit. There's a power supply, a light, and you get hooks on both sides, plus you get netting. And overall, I have to say, I mean, don't forget there are split folding seats as well, which you can fold down relatively flat, so they give you an extra load space if you need it. And it's not too bad for a couple of suitcases. It's not unreasonable. So for a car of this size, I would say it's okay. Not ideal, but it's not so bad. Let's see what the rear passenger space is like. Here we go. So this seat, of course, is set for my driving position. I'm 6'2" with long legs, and yeah, it's not too bad actually. Just about fit. The fact is that it's got some scoops out in here, and they're really helping. And literally, like, my knees literally slot right into them, and that's how that works. Ideally, I could do with a bit more room. A bit more room, I would be happier. Headrest in the back, that's no problem there. That's quite good. Over here, room for the shins are no issue, and just about enough space for my feet there as well. In the back here, you've got vents, so that's quite good. And you have a power supply-ish. Yeah, power supply, but no USB points. Isofix Chelsea anchor points. Of course, this one is leather lined for the S line, I guess. And over here, you have an armrest and cup holders right in the middle there. Do we have something here? No, we don't. That's just the handle. So there you go. Headroom is not too bad. You have some nice light switch arrangement here. There you go. That works quite well, and the handles and all the rest of it. Of course, beautifully finished, you know, and the design as well is really nice, you know, quite angular, and I do like the way that that's all been done, and the door handles as well, same as in the front. I would feel slightly claustrophobic in there. Headroom is okay, but for normal size adults with a normal size driver as well in the front, I think it would be fine. So I think for most people this would be okay, but if you're on the taller side, do test it out first. Cool, let's get in the front. Let's get back in the front, I should say. There we go. Nice to be back out from the cold again, and it is quite cold, believe you me. So here we are, check this out. So it keeps doing this thing. This is not obviously my Audi, so I always do continue as a guest. Once you've done that, once you just switch it on, starter button down there, foot on the brake. I'll just show you what happens with the instrument panel when I turn it on. All lights up there. Now, I just want to show you some interesting things onto it. Now here it does this thing again. It's got all this information it wants to collect from you, so you can set up the privacy. And in fact, there's all these other options in here, such as legal and all the rest of it. Once you've connected it up to the internet and all the rest of it. But otherwise, it's the usual stuff that you get with your Audi interface, the MMI system, all touch, so none of that fiddly stuff that they used to have before, so this is very, very good. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto exist on there. On here you've got car, in here you've got things like, you know, checking the efficiency of the charging and all the rest of it. The other good thing is that you've got the drive select button, as you do in Audis, which you can then configure the car. This one I've just left in auto, really. It's the sort of car, you have got option of dynamic and all the rest of it. But I found that auto is fine for this car. You've also got this button, EV. Now with the EV button, this is quite good. Now normally, in this case, as you'll see from here, let me just show you here first. This is the EV. It's completely depleted in this case. It arrived fully charged, obviously, within the same day I had used it all up, because it runs mostly on EV to start with. Petrol on that side. That's your speedometer. Obviously we are neutral. This is your rev. Well, it's off actually. The engine is off, which is, and you see down here, this is what tells you what the EV system is doing at any given point. Over here, of course, you've got your normal information. 42 miles per gallon is what I've had over nearly 400 miles. With here, I can change the setting on there, or the view, and give me the other details. Now this one is quite interesting because this one actually shows you how much range you have on each one, the petrol one and on the EV mode. So the EV, like I said, is completely depleted at the moment. Otherwise, even when I got it and it was fully charged, that was showing about 25 miles. So not the 40 miles that they claim. And then up here you can see the range available and all the rest of it. You can, of course, as with all of these Audi virtual cockpits, you can configure it as well, and it changes. So it does all of these things as well with the navigation and all the rest of it. So the EV mode I was talking about, if you press this EV button here, you get these options. So like I said, normally it would go into that, because then it would just drive an EV, and that's its preferred option. And then it says auto hybrid, in which case it decides whether to use one or the other. And then you've got battery hold. Now the battery hold is quite interesting, because if you're on the motorway where the EV really isn't that useful, then what you can do is press battery hold. So we'll just use the petrol engine. When you enter town where the EV is more appropriate, more useful, you can you can turn that off, and it will just use the EV mode, or as much of the EV mode as possible. And the battery charge, which is where I should have it in now, I suppose, is, and there you go, see the engine is now started up, is then the engine charging the battery, and then you can see that that's what that's doing there. So the rest of the car is pretty much Audi, which is to say it's really nice. I like the way they put these vent pods on either side of the instrument panel. A, they look good, and B, the fact that now I've got my own vent pod and the passenger has their vent pods, we don't have to argue about which direction that needs to be in. Those are for me and those are for you. Really nice trim, as you'd expect, you know, soft touch there, but really, really nicely done. This surface here is really sweet. This is really tight here, and of course you've got your gear lever here, which is basically just a lever, and then a button for park, starter. This is a touch button, so you can actually turn the volume up from here. Just by touching it, which is quite nice. Cup holders over here, and you've got this little thing, so you can actually hold the cup like that, or you can just use it as a pocket. And then you've got your, maybe that's what the £110 was for, I don't know. Then you've got your handbrake, your power supply, a smallish cubby box down here. You've got a glove box here, which is reasonable size. Very nicely trimmed, finished, and executed seats. Very, very nicely the way that Audi does. Not powered though, not powered. And the other thing I must say, despite all the spec, is no reversing camera on this one. So you're down to mirrors and sensor. You do have a sensors, but that's about it, and your own widths. But otherwise, beautifully finished, beautifully done. It's all very, very, very nice in here, just as you would expect. Cruise control there, not active cruise control, regular cruise control. So some emissions in this car. These seats are not powered seats, for example. But otherwise, not too bad at all. Next thing to do is to take it for a drive and talk a little bit about how that EV system works on the move. So I've just left the Shell petrol station here, where I went back again and tried to plug it in, and this is why I struggle so much with these electric chargers and stuff. I had to rumble around in the back. There are 3 different cables in the back in that case that I showed you earlier. Found the right cable, plugged it into the Genie Point charger, which is that one, which I've used before on the Honda E, and it seemed to work. Plugged it in on there, plugged it on there, got up the app. On the app it says, yes, your car is connected. This is the one it's connected to. Press start, sat here for 20 minutes. I have no idea if it charged or not. Said charging on here, said charging on the app, ended the thing, then I couldn't unplug it. So you have to really make sure it's probably stopped. The thing is, this is a nightmare. Once you plug it in, they're locked in. They cannot be released until you've absolutely stopped. I guess that's to stop vandals from taking them out whilst you got your car charging, right? And then that finally stopped it on the app, charged it. Then I couldn't take it out of the car. I had to unlock the car and stuff, and eventually it came out. So it's like, oh my God, there's a whole load of stuff that you've got to learn to figure it out. And I've no idea if it charged or not. I'm assuming that it has because it's running on electric power. Oh, it was running on electric power. Now I switched back to petrol again. So let's see what the EV mode is saying. It's not allowing me electric mode, so I'm assuming that it hasn't charged at all. But it is on hybrid. You know, the car feels plenty quick enough. It's not a sports car. 200 horsepower though is plenty in a car of this size. So actually it's more than adequate. Cruised perfectly well on the motorway, no issues whatsoever. Had it on cruise control most of the way. And that's where the fuel economy was about 40 miles per gallon. That's where I got all of that. Very stable, very planted, not affected by side winds or anything like that. Weather conditions were a bit rough, but no issues at all. This is a car, they say it's a little bit sharper. It's got this, modular system something or other, where the system is supposed to detect from your steering inputs how you are driving the car and adjust the handling or adjust the parameters accordingly. I can't say that I've felt that it does anything like that. Having said that, I've left it in automatic, not in sports mode. I've left it in automatic mode, and there was a time when I threw it around a couple of corners. And then shortly afterwards, I felt that the steering had significantly firmed up. So clearly it had decided to put itself into sports mode at that point and firmed up the steering, which is, it was a little bit heavier than normal, not a huge amount, it was fine. So yeah, it's interesting. I think there is something to be said for the electronics, but there's also something to be said about knowing what they're actually doing, and sometimes it's very confusing as to what they're doing, despite all the switches and things that you can actually do. The ride on this car, again, we were talking about those 18-inch wheels earlier, and I think another reason to not switch to the 18s, to stick with the 17s, or rather downgrade with the 17s, depending on the car that you choose, is that the ride is not great on these 18s. It does, there is quite a bit of noise, but it can be quite jarring. So like over here, you can feel it. It's not bad, but it's there, and it's definitely something that every now and then you go, oh, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Which again, in an Audi, and something that's supposed to be quite comfortable, you go, well, that wasn't necessary. The roads around here are not great. This is northwest London, but still, I think just having that 17, I suspect might make that difference and just improve the ride a little bit. Again, the performance is fine, whether it's in EV mode or normal mode. In EV mode, it's very quiet. Obviously, it's very refined. You don't even know if it's actually on or not. But it's very smooth. You may alarm other people by the way that it can accelerate quite quickly. It does tend to spin its wheels. It is a bit icy and slippery at the moment, so the traction takes a while to cut in sometimes. So you just have to be a little bit tentative. So therefore, there is enough torque for you to be a little tentative on throttle application. That's for sure. That has to be said. Visibility all around is good. It's a shame that it doesn't have the reversing camera. Again, I think like nowadays most manufacturers are fitting reversing cameras even to their regular base spec models. So come on, you German guys, you need to start making some of this stuff standard and not charging us extra for every little thing. Wing mirrors are good. Everything is good in the car. Very comfortable seating position. Like I said, the quality and stuff is fantastic. Apart from the parking, the reversing camera, the visibility is not really an issue, so that's okay. Overall, then, I would say that the Audi A3 remains a likable car. I think the styling is fantastic now. I think it's looking better than it's ever looked. But this particular variant, the plug-in electric hybrid, I was keen to try it. I'm glad I tried it. I'm not convinced by it. I'm not convinced about plug-in hybrids. I prefer the regular hybrids. that basically manage everything themselves and sort it all out and keep the batteries topped up and all the rest of it. It's interesting that you can have the different modes in here, and the sat nav is clever enough to figure out when it should be using electric mode and stuff like that. But then you don't normally use the sat nav in cars anymore, do you? You use your own, you use your phone, don't you? Use Waze and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's a tricky one. Plus, I think that if you have a home charger, it would probably make more sense. It's something that you just plug in at night, so the next day you could make as much use of it as possible, and then just run it as a petrol car. But stopping and charging and stuff like that, yeah, I just don't see the appeal of it at all, I'm afraid. Plus, you know, you're paying extra for the privilege. You know, you can get a diesel one for what, $3,000 less or something, or maybe $4,000 less. So yeah, you have to think about these things as well. As a car, as the Audi A3, I really like it. I think it's really good. It's really nice to drive. It's a very appealing car. It's a nice looking car. It makes you feel good when you sit in this quality interior, and generally it's very nice to drive. Not the most engaging or sporty drive, certainly not in this particular guise. I think I might be trying something a little bit different that would answer that question, but not in this guise. But otherwise, it's absolutely fine. So there you go, a reasonable thumbs up for this car. Hope you enjoyed the review. Do let me know what you thought of the car, the review, anything else you want to talk about in the comments above, below, elsewhere. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you all in the next one. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure that you're subscribing to youtube.com/browncarguy. Subscribe to my website as well, which of course is browncarguy.com. And follow me on all social media such as Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Just search for my hashtag. It is #browncarguy. If you enjoy my content, then maybe you can sponsor it. And you can do that from as little as £2 a month by going to patreon.com/browncarguy and join some amazing people such as Muhammad Ali Ahmed over in the UAE, Partha Srinivasan in India, Tom Conway Gordon here in the UK, Isaac Beauchard over in America, my mate Reza Adel here again in the UK, Mohammed Qasim also here, and Saraj Abbasi here in London. Plus, my latest patron is Mark Waddell, all the way over in Canada. Those people are absolutely awesome, and you can join them, like I said, by heading over to patreon.com/browncarguy, where it is possible to get some of these stickers. Look at these, fresh from the printers. How cool are those? And maybe even, depending on what tier you go for, the Brown Car Guy hat. Isn't that great? Anyway, if you can do that, fantastic. If you can't, make sure you've hit the like button. Comment if you can. Certainly share the video amongst your friends. And of course, like I said, make sure that you're subscribing and you've hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any of these videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all again soon in the next video.